The Richard Rodgers Theater hummed with anticipation. Backstage, Denzel Washington adjusted his tie for the final time, his fingers moving with the practiced precision of a man who had prepared for countless performances throughout his storied career. At 71, his face carried the distinguished lines of decades in the spotlight, yet his eyes still held the same intensity that had captivated audiences since his early days. 5 minutes, Mr. Washington called the stage manager, a young woman with a clipboard and headset who couldn't completely hide her awe. Despite working with him for the past 3 months, Denzel nodded, taking a deep breath. This revival of August Wilson's Fences marked his return to Broadway after several years focusing on film. Critics had been effusive in their praise, calling his portrayal of Troy Maxson a masterclass in emotional depth and the performance of a lifetime. Though how many performances of a lifetime had they attributed to him over the years? He closed his eyes briefly, centering himself as he had learned to do decades ago. The ritual was always the same. 3 deep breaths, a moment of gratitude, and then the transformation. When he opened his eyes again, he was no longer Denzel Washington, the Academy Award-winning actor, but Troy Maxson, the complex, flawed protagonist of Wilson's masterpiece. The stage lights were blinding as always when he first stepped out. The audience was a dark mass beyond the illuminated stage. Faces indistinguishable just as he preferred it. Acting was about immersion, about forgetting the hundreds of eyes watching and judging. Tonight's performance flowed with particular electricity, something in the air, perhaps, or simply one of those magical nights when every line, every movement felt inevitable and true. It wasn't until the final scene, as Troy confronted his own mortality, that something shifted. Denzel delivered his monologue with raw emotion, his voice resonating through the theater. But as he paused for dramatic effect, his gaze drifted momentarily toward the third row, center left, and that's when he saw her. The recognition was instant, visceral like a physical jolt. Even through the stage lights, even after 49 years, he would know those eyes anywhere. Eleanor Mitchell, his Ellie, for a heartbeat that stretched into eternity. Denzel Washington, not Troy Maxson, stood frozen on stage, his professional composure cracking ever so slightly. A flicker of something crossed his face, surprise, recognition, and something deeper, more vulnerable. In that unguarded moment, decades fell away, and he was 22 again, a Fordham University student with dreams bigger than his bank account, and a heart full of possibilities. The moment lasted perhaps a second's and eternity in theater time before Denzel recovered, seamlessly returning to character. But in the world of smartphones and social media, 2 seconds was all it took. In the third row, Eleanor sat perfectly still, her silver-streaked dark hair framing a face that had aged with the same grace as his own. Their eyes held each other's for that brief, electric moment before Denzel continued his performance. By the time the curtain fell and the standing ovation began, dozens of phones had already captured and shared that fleeting, genuine reaction. A Broadway insider with a prime seat posted, "Just witnessed something extraordinary." Denzel Washington spotted someone during his performance and completely broke character for a moment. Never seen anything like it from him. Hashtag what just happened. Hashtag Denzel moment backstage. After the final bow, Denzel's publicist, Maria Gonzalez, rushed toward him. Phone in hand. "Denzel, something's happening online." That moment during the final act, people are sharing it everywhere. Did something happen out there? He took a towel from a nearby assistant, wiping the performer's sweat from his brow, his mind still reeling from the sight of Eleanor. "It's nothing," he said automatically, the protective instinct of a man who had guarded his private life fiercely for decades. "Just caught something in the audience that surprised me for a second." Maria looked unconvinced. Well, whatever it was, it's trending. People are calling it the most genuine moment they've ever seen from you. Not as a character, but as you. Denzel frowned slightly. Let me see. The clip was already spreading, his face in close-up, the unmistakable moment of recognition, the flash of emotion that transformed his features before he slipped back into character. The comments ranged from curious to swooning. Who did Denzel? Washington see in that audience? I've never seen him break like that. That look was everything. Something personal just happened on that stage. 50 years in entertainment, and we finally saw the real Denzel for a split second. I need to get to the after party, Denzel said, handing the phone back to Maria. Is it still at the Edison? Yes. But what about this? Maria gestured to her. Phone. Should we release a statement? People are speculating wildly. Not now, he said firmly, his mind already elsewhere. Handle it how you think best, but keep it vague. Just say I was caught up in the moment. As his driver navigated through the New York evening traffic toward the after party, Denzel sat in uncharacteristic silence, memories flooding back unbidden. Eleanor Mitchell, his first serious love, the woman who knew him before fame, before Oscar nominations, before he became an icon, the woman who had once known just Denzel, the struggling student with big dreams and a stutter he worked tirelessly to overcome, the woman who had walked away from him more had he walked away from her at a crossroads neither had been prepared to navigate that, and now, somehow, she was here in New York, at his play, looking at him with those same eyes that had once seen into the core of who he was. Before the world decided who he should be, as the car pulled up to the Edison, where the after party was already in full swing, Denzel straightened his tie once more and prepared to enter as the consummate professional he had always been. But for the first time in years, the prospect of putting on the public persona of Denzel Washington felt unusually difficult, because somewhere in this city tonight was the one person who had known him when that name was just a name, not a brand. And despite everything the logical part of his brain was telling him, despite the decades of discipline and compartmentalization, one thought kept circling in his mind. Would she be at the after party? And more troublingly, why, after all these years, did the possibility make his heart race like he was 22 all over again? The Edison ballroom glittered with Broadway's elite as Denzel navigated the crowd, accepting congratulations while his eyes scanned for one particular face, looking for someone. Asked James Parker, the play's director, appearing with the glasses of scotch, just taking it all in. Denzel replied, accepting the drink. James studied him. In 30 years, I've never seen you break character. Not once, until tonight. Before Denzel could respond, Maria approached. There's someone asking to see you. Eleanor Mitchell? The name sent a jolt through him. Where is she? In the small reception room off the main hall. Walking toward the room, memories surfaced with each step. Eleanor laughing in the campus library, her hand in his, the arguments as his career began taking off, and the rainy night when everything fell apart. She stood by the window, moonlight filtering through her now silver-streaked hair. Hearing his footsteps, she turned. Denzel, she said, her voice still carrying that slight southern lilt he remembered. Ellie. He replied, the nickname coming naturally even after 49 years. This is unexpected. She smiled. I imagined so. Your face on stage said it. Apparently that moment is all over social media. So my granddaughter tells me. She's the one who convinced me to come tonight. Eleanor moved closer. You were magnificent up there, Denzel. But then, you always were destined for greatness. Not according to Professor Matheson, he replied, referencing their old drama teacher. Eleanor laughed. God, I'd forgotten about him. What a fool he turned out to be. Why now, Ellie? He finally asked, after all these years. I live in Chicago now. I'm only in New York because my granddaughter just started at Columbia. When she found out about your play, she's a theater major, practically worships you, and you decided to come along. Eleanor met his gaze directly. I followed your career from the beginning. I guess I wanted to see for myself if you were still in there somewhere. And he asked, his voice lower than intended. That moment on stage answered my question. She stepped closer. For what it's worth, I'm glad to see he is. Maria interrupted, apologetic. They're asking for you for the toast, Denzel. When she left, Eleanor stepped back. You should go. They're waiting for the man of the hour. Will you stay? She shook her head. This is your world. I just wanted to say hello and perhaps goodbye properly this time. Have dinner with me tomorrow, he said impulsively. There's so much I never understood about how we ended. She finished, yes. He admitted that. Eleanor handed him a business card. Call me tomorrow, if you still want to. As they walked back, she paused. You should know something, Denzel. I'm not here alone. My husband is waiting at the hotel. He nodded, though something tightened in his chest. I assumed as much. Tomorrow. Then, she said, slipping away while he returned to the party. His phone buzzed with a text from his wife. Pauletta, Twitter says you had quite a moment on stage tonight. Everything okay? As the room quieted for the toast, Denzel replied, everything's fine. Tell you about it when you get back. Love you. But as he raised his glass, his mind was 49 years in the past, wondering about roles not taken and the woman who had just walked back into his life. The Gramercy Park Hotel restaurant offered the privacy Denzel needed. In a secluded corner table, he watched Eleanor approach in a simple navy dress, carrying herself with the same quiet confidence he remembered from their college days. You look wonderful, he said as she sat down. So do you, she replied. Fame has treated you well. After ordering drink scotch for him, white wine for her, they slipped into conversation that gradually shed its initial awkwardness. Your husband didn't mind this dinner, Denzel asked. Robert understands. He knows our history. She smiled slightly. 38 years of marriage gives you security. Not quite as long as Pauletta and me. He noted, Hollywood's most enduring couple. Eleanor acknowledged. You beat the odds. The inevitable question hung between them until Denzel finally voiced it. What really happened to us, Ellie? Eleanor's fingers traced the rim of her wine glass. Life happened. Your career was taking off. My academic dreams were pulling me elsewhere. We could have made it work, he suggested. Could we? Her eyes held his. Remember that rainy night in your apartment when you got the call back for Los Angeles? The memory rushed back. Their tiny apartment near Fordham. The excitement of his first big break colliding with the reality of their diverging paths. You said I was choosing fame over love, he recalled, and you said I was afraid to take risks. She countered. We were both right, in a way, and both wrong. She reached into her purse and extracted a worn envelope. I've carried this for years. Inside was a faded ticket stub from Othello at Fordham, his breakthrough student role. You kept this all these years. Some things you don't forget, she said simply. That night, I knew you were destined for greatness. And you, did you find what you were looking for? Eleanor nodded. Professor of literature at Northwestern. 2 children who make me proud. For grandchildren now. Her smile was genuine. A life well lived. Denzel, no regrets, he asked softly. Only that we hurt each other when the paths diverged. But not about the paths themselves. She leaned forward. Would you have become Denzel Washington if you'd chosen differently? Before, He could answer. His phone vibrated with Pauletta's name on screen. "Take it," Eleanor said gently. "Some stories need proper endings, and ours already had one decades ago." As they stood outside waiting for their cars, the night air carried a hint of approaching autumn. "This viral moment of yours," Eleanor said. "What will you tell people?" "Nothing they need to know," he replied. "Some moments belong just to us." She leaned forward and kissed his cheek. "Goodbye." Denzel Washington, that boy from Fordham, did good as her car pulled away. Denzel answered Pauletta's call. "Everything okay?" his wife asked, watching Eleanor's. Taillights disappear. Denzel felt something settle within him, not regret or longing, but completion. A circle closing. "Yes," he said, meaning it, just putting some old questions to rest. The next morning, as speculation about his mystery audience member reached fever pitch, Denzel posted a simple message. "Some memories remind us of who we were. Others confirm who we've become. Grateful for both." The post itself went viral, though the woman who had momentarily broken through Denzel Washington's legendary composure remained known only to him. Their brief reconnection had given them both something valuable, not a reopening of old wounds, but a gentle confirmation that life, with all its difficult choices and diverging paths, had led them exactly where they were meant to be.